September 2024. Let's just dive right in. It's the charts lately are just so complex and interesting, and we're feeling that. Yeah, like you feel the way you feel is the astrology. So if you feel like things are really jumbled sometimes, and then sometimes crystal clear, and then really jumbled again, if you feel like everything's happening everywhere all at once all the time, that's also true. So you're feeling the astrology. So your feelings are valid. Let's just start with that. Um, there's a lot of detail in this chart. Just know that when I'm looking at a chart, I'm like assembling the details in my head into some kind of pattern for you. I started to record going into the details, but it just gets into the weeds. And if you're super, super astrology nerd and you want to hear that stuff, that's one thing. But then how do you use it in your daily life? How do you use it in your daily life? That's the harder thing, even for astrologers to fully glean from all the detail. So let's just look at the bigger picture here. So the first thing is your feelings are valid. There are a lot of things going on. This is a very unusual time we're going through. Very, very unusual. Once in a it's more rare than once in a lifetime, but certainly in your lifetime, you've never experienced this. In September, we start the month with a very strong kite formation. And this is kind of, the beginning, as you begin, it's how you go through the month, but certainly through the first half of the month, you're kind of guided by this kite that not only is a kite formation, but it has a backbone. And I could go into the details of that, but just know that it's a kite. So what's interesting about a kite, also one that has a backbone? If you have the fabric of a kite with no crossbars, it's just this floppy piece of fabric. Nothing can happen. It'll blow away in the wind. It'll flop over on itself, get tangled and disappear. You won't, it can't do much. When you have the backbone added, it becomes this structured thing that you can actually do things with and fly for an extended period. It can do stuff. And so it's good for a kite to have this backbone because otherwise it wouldn't do anything. It would just be this pretty formation. It might feel good for a few days, but in terms of getting stuff done, doing what you need to do, the backbone is better. It gives you, some grit, something you can push against, energy you can use. Um, it's interesting though, because the backbone's created by Venus and Neptune. We'll throw that out there. So that's an interesting backbone to have. So even though we do have squares and oppositions as we begin the month, I really like this energy for getting things done. It's an easier, especially with treating people kindly, having compassion, seeing through the lens of Neptune, the lens of Venus is nice. It's a nicer kind of workflow energy. And then the planets that are typically harder, maybe Pluto, maybe Uranus, they've got this nice trine energy going on and even some sextile energy. So there's some pretty energy here. We do some of the planets that can feel more challenging are in square relationships, and that would be Mars and Saturn and the Sun. So that's all there too. But again, if you just have a floppy piece of fabric shaped like a kite, it's not going to go anywhere. You also need an anchor. You need to be grounded. So if you're gonna have this nice flowy energy that's very dreamy, then it's also nice to have some grounding. And so that helps too. You do need, ideally, this is my suggestion, especially as we begin the month, so that Labor Day weekend in the States, is to have healthy ways to get your energy out. Healthy ways to get your energy out. Healthy ways to deal with the ideas in your head that are really strong, strong ideals, strong ideas, strong communication. It can happen. And so you want to be prepared for that. What would be your goal for that particular, as we end August, go into the beginning of September? What's the outcome you really want? Think of that first. And then how are you going to use this verbal energy, this idea, philosophical energy that's very, very strong at the beginning of the month? How you communicate, how you express yourself is super important at this time. If you want the kite to take you where you want to go, take a relationship where you want to go, a job where you want to go, anything, any goals you're having right now, it's going to hit people's charts differently. You know, it could be financial. You need to think of how you express yourself, how you communicate. It's the same thing, I guess, but there's physical expression, verbal expression, and also paying attention to um, authenticity, because with Uranus and some of the stuff going on here, Pluto, you want to be authentic. So trying to paste a smile on or pretend like you're being kind or pretend like everything's okay, that's going to be worse. So authenticity is super important here, and increasingly in these times, being authentic, seeing clearly, so important right at this moment. And it's easier for some than others. And even for the people where it's a little easier, we can have blinders on to when we're falling into the trap of pasting on a smile or pretending. So everyone can fall into this trap. So be on the lookout for that, because if you want to come across well, authenticity is key. So what if you have a more troubling thing to express? Well, being as authentic as you can without lashing out and attacking with that Mars. So you may need to strategize, like go for a 10-mile run before you have this conversation, or just make sure you're using your energy in a really positive way to get some of that fire out so that you can be clear and authentic and to the point without lashing out or attacking. That's certainly the better way to go. Now, of course, you could just be like all attack mode, but there's so many reasons why astrology and the way these energies work. These are kind of like energies that are operative inside you, these planetary energies. The wisdom of these energies is always that the attack mode is often very bad and ill-considered and won't end well for you. It might feel good in the moment, but it won't end well for you. And this is ultimately about you and your own life and your own journey, and the attack stance, always being fiery and on attack and on the offense, or maybe a strong, fiery defense is not always the way to go, unless you've, strategized and you're being authentic, you're not trying to pretend or manipulate. If you strip all that away and you're just yourself and you're authentically angry without manipulation, without trying to get one up on the other person, then it works well. But that's usually if you've done your due diligence, taking care of yourself with all this energy, taking good care of yourself, moving your body, journaling. Like if you need to yell into your journal or something, because it's just for some reason it's always like this. When you lash out blindly and you're just like super reactionary, it never seems to be what the universe is really asking you to do. So for your own soul growth, what's being asked of you is to use your energy differently without lashing out, and to learn compassion is the overall goal. For some reason, in the school of life, the overall goal is learning compassion. So whatever you want to accomplish in early September, compassion and not controlling your anger, like buttoning it down, but being authentic, work it out in healthy ways, and then come to the table with whatever you need to express in a healthy way. Which involves compassion by definition here in the chart, and by just everything I've learned about astrology, it's what ultimately is asked for. Learning the lessons of where you've fired off or been too impulsive or too reactionary, learning the lessons from the past. Can you learn those lessons? That is definitely being, and what gets in the way of those lessons? Your ego. This is asked of every human on the planet. This is not just about one person or one group you particularly don't like. This is about you. It's about me too. I have to pay attention to this as well. We all are on this journey. Like I said, we're all in this together. Are we learning from our past mistakes? I don't know. Some of us are learning faster than others. Some of us are still trying to learn, but yeah, we're all learning. We're all in this school. So again, just to condense this first half of the month, there's a lot of energy that helps you get amazing things done. You can capture the breeze with this kite. So you have help from the planets to help you achieve things and get things done. Get you to do something even fun, make the work fun. But there is a lot of fire, a lot of energy that you need to find healthy ways to work out so that your communication is healthy, authentic, and compassionate. Got that? All right, let's move on to the second half of the month. All right, we still have this really interesting kite formation that still has some structure to it. It's definitely getting yanked in, like the wind is crazier. That being said, I would say in terms of easier energy, more pleasant energy, I would say there's more of that in the second half of the month, but you still have a lot of crosswinds and things pulling in different directions. That's still there. We can't escape that. Um, so second half of the month, let me just focus on this. How is it different? So the kite's still there, crossbar still there, but it's like the kite has entered crosswinds that are coming from different directions. But then there's still so much hopeful energy here. There's still so much about communication this month. You know, we've got Jupiter in Gemini. Mercury's a big player here. But the Mercury is in, you know, as much as it's in opposition to Saturn in this latter part of the month, it's also working well with that Mars, which was problematic before. Mars is now working well with Saturn, which is good. Um, so uh, there's still a lot here about and that Mars Saturn has a lot to do with learning those lessons of how to communicate, how to express yourself. How do you use your energy to best effect? Have you learned what doesn't work? Have you learned what does work? Communication is key. And also what communication is happening inside your mind. How are you talking to yourself? What messages are you sending yourself? Are you making yourself paranoid and crazy? This is a lot to do with what goes on inside of you. Are you making yourself crazy? More than anyone else in the world, are you your worst enemy inside your head? That is the biggest lesson of all. And remember, ego is the enemy of everything. I mean, we have egos for a reason. We are born with these identities and trained to have these identities and to feel good or bad. You know, the ego helps us in some ways, and it's like we have to have it to function in some ways, but it's also the enemy sometimes of reason. It's the enemy of the wisest action. We can get bound up in our ego point of view. So be careful with that. Trying to think. So the beginning of the month was really about working with that, make sure you do something to siphon off the fiery energy. I would say that's not the biggest. I think the biggest thing later in the month, in that second half, if we just divide the month in two, is to be mindful of, like, it's really about the ego, like feeling unnecessarily wounded, unnecessarily attacked. People may attack you. It doesn't matter what other people do or what other people say. It's how do you internalize it? So somebody can say to you, you're an idiot, and you don't have to feel bad about that. You don't have to say something mean back to them. You don't have to defend yourself as being not an idiot. You know, there's so many different ways you can respond to somebody saying you're an idiot. If you're all bound up in your ego, you're going to feel like fighting that person and proving, maybe you're going to be on the defense. Prove you're not an idiot. Do everything you can do to demonstrate you're not an idiot. Or maybe you'll go on the attack because you feel like I was attacked. So now I'm going to, attack back. And that is just, again, I see it in this chart, but the planetary energy is always saying something like, is that the best way to go? And you learning personally your own lessons on how to take in information and react. So here, there's this idea, especially in love relationships and being jealous. Maybe it's jealousy at work. Maybe it's jealous of somebody in your family. I don't know, but there's jealousy here. Um, can you talk yourself out of jealousy? Can you react to information differently so that you're not like an insane jealous person? Jealousy usually doesn't end well. It's usually not a helpful way to feel. You can notice information like, I don't know, you're dating somebody and or married to somebody and they seem to be flirting with someone. You can have that conversation. Like, when I see that, it makes me feel this way. I know you've never given me any reason to be jealous for, unless that's untrue, but to be able to first have the conversation in your head, like, am I being reasonable? Is this hard feeling of jealousy helping me at all? I don't want to ignore actual data and information, but am I just being kind of um, unnecessarily in this hard feeling? Can I choose to feel differently about this? Because you actually can choose to feel differently and then come at it from a different perspective. So I would say jealousy right now, and obsession around how people see you, how people feel, what kind of affirmations you're getting from others. Be super careful of that, because that can be what really trips you up in the second half of the month. Especially in the energy here in the chart is saying, do not do that. Talk yourself out of it. Use your mind, your very strong mind. Mercury's in Virgo, Jupiter's in Gemini. You have a lot of help here and then Mars and Mercury are working well in the middle of the month. And you can actually use Mercury opposition Saturn to good effect. You can use Jupiter square um, Saturn to good effect. You can use these energies wisely and well if you choose to, but it's a choice. You have to specifically tell yourself to do this if you start to feel a little crazy with jealousy or feeling offended or too much fear around how people perceive you, or whether or not you're, losing someone, or losing whatever it is you feel you could be losing mid-month forward. Don't get crazy with that. Don't go into the crazy place inside of you. Work with that strong Mercury, work with that strong Gemini placement with Jupiter, because your brain can actually, even though it has little pockets of jealousy and crazy that anyone can go into, everyone's got this in their brain, places they could go in their brain and their thinking that are crazy. You have the raw materials inside your brain to pull yourself back out of that. So, or get help, like go get therapy, get counseling, and definitely moving your body is definitely indicated here. Um, Using movement to help you. So go run around the block 10 times before you speak or before you act on these things that might feel emotionally hard for you. And there are lots of surprises, but they're floating along. Thus, this whole month is filled with surprises, but it's like everything just kind of flows and floats along so the change doesn't have as jarring a feel as we might expect. So often with Uranus and talking about change and Uranus and surprise, we can kind of lean a little too heavily into this is jarring and hard, and sometimes it is. But the tendency in September is for there to be like crazy daily moment to moment change. And you're just like, somehow we're all, you included, we're able to just kind of flow along with, yeah, okay. And we just kind of flow with it. Most people, some people, not so much, but most people, there's this ability to just kind of go with it. And I think that's probably with this kite energy throughout the month. Just know it's there and you can just grab hold that kite, and also anchor yourself being mindful of what you're doing to yourself in your own mind, and you'll get through this. I think overall, if I had to say if this month was good or bad, and you can never really say that because I talk all the time about how binary thinking is not necessarily the way to go. But if I had to say overall whether I like this month, and I know they're going to be challenges. I can see it. They're going to be challenges, but overall the energy is kind of beautiful, I would say. But you have to be able to see in the gray space. You have to be able to see the silver linings in the gray space. And I'm very practiced at that because I've had to learn to be. And I encourage you to learn to be the same way, to look for this. If everything seems gray and jarring, look for the silver lining, specifically train yourself to see how could this actually be good. Not if some heinous crime has been committed against you or a loved one, that's never good, but there's still beauty even in tragedy. And there is, so the crime itself or the heinous thing itself, the horrendous thing itself is not good, but there's always beauty in there somewhere, not with the act or the impact of something really horrible, but there's beauty in there. And sometimes you see beauty at its most striking in those moments. And that's the thing that's the sort of Houdini trick you do you train yourself to look for these things. And then life is really beautiful. It really is. Even in the hardship and the craziness, it's beautiful. So that's the way I see the month. Even though I see there's going to be challenge. I see it's going to be hard, but it's going to be beautiful too. How? I have no idea, but it just is. All right, good luck, guys.